What if I told you that your obsession with saving money might actually be destroying your life? I know that sounds crazy coming from someone who makes videos about being frugal, but I need to share something with you that nobody talks about, the dark side of being extremely frugal. Now, you've probably felt this before, the crushing guilt every time you spend money on anything, even things you actually need. Maybe you've checked your bank account multiple times a day, or maybe you've worn the same clothes until they literally fall apart, because you feel too guilty to replace them. If you're nodding your head right now, you're not alone, and what I'm about to tell you might shock you. Here's the part that will blow your mind. Extreme frugality actually costs more money in the long run than just spending normally. It can ruin your relationships, destroy your mental health, and ironically, prevent you from building the wealth you're trying so hard to create. And I know this because I've seen it happen to countless people who started with good intentions, but let frugality become a destructive obsession. I understand the psychological trap of extreme frugality, and I've helped people break free from it. Today, I'm exposing the dark side of being extremely frugal that can literally destroy your life. This isn't about forcing yourself to spend more money. It's about understanding when saving money stops being a strategy and starts being a prison that keeps you from actually living. And here's the part that will shock you. This extreme frugality actually costs more money in the long run than just spending money normally. But the financial cost is nothing compared to what it does to your happiness, your relationships, and your ability to actually enjoy life. And look, I know this is an easy trap to fall into because I've done it to myself countless times. I've spent hours trying to find a simple fast food deal that could save me a couple of bucks. And then while eating, I couldn't even enjoy it because then I still spent money on it. It's a terrible trap to be in. But let's move to a story about a woman named Sarah. She was so obsessed with saving money that she needed a new laptop for work. Her old one was literally falling apart, taking 10 minutes to boot up and crashing twice a day. But instead of just buying a decent laptop for $800, she spent 3 months researching every possible option, waiting for sales, checking refurbished models, trying to find the best and absolute cheapest solution. However, during those 3 months, she lost 2 potential clients because her laptop crashed during video calls. She missed deadlines because her computer was too slow. She spent probably 40 hours researching laptops instead of working. When she finally bought a laptop, the same $800 one she could have had bought 3 months earlier, she calculated that her extreme frugality had cost her over $3,000 in lost income, and she also wasted a bunch of time. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real damage of extreme frugality goes much deeper than just financial loss. It rewires your brain in ways that can destroy your happiness and your relationships. Here's what nobody tells you about extreme frugality. It creates a scarcity mindset that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. What do I mean by that? When you're constantly focused on what you can't afford, what you can't buy, and what you need to sacrifice, your brain starts operating from a place of fear and lack. You begin to see money as something that's always running out, never enough, and too precious to ever actually use. This mindset doesn't just affect your spending, it affects everything. You start making decisions based on fear instead of opportunity. You avoid taking risks that could improve your life because they might cost you more money. You turn down social invitations because they're too expensive. You skip networking events, educational courses, and experiences that could actually help you earn more money in the long run because of your fear of spending money. But before I dive into this, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money, even if it's something you actually needed? Have you ever avoided doing something you wanted to do because it costed money, even though you could afford it? If so, you might be dealing with some of the psychological effects of extreme frugality that I'm about to discuss. The scariest part about extreme frugality is how slowly it isolates you from people you care about. And I've heard this story from so many people who've reached out to me, how their obsession with saving money nearly destroyed their closest relationships. Picture this scenario. Your friends invite you to a dinner at a nice restaurant to celebrate someone's birthday. Instead of just going and enjoying yourself, you spend the entire week before stressing about the cost. You check the menu online multiple times, calculate exactly how much you'll spend, including tax and tip, and maybe even suggest a cheaper alternative that nobody else wants. When you finally go, you can't enjoy the food because you're thinking of how you could have made the same meal at home for a quarter of the price. You don't order drinks because they're overpriced. You might even ask for separate checks and calculate your portions down to the penny. Meanwhile, everyone else is laughing, sharing stories, and creating memories. This happens to so many people. They're physically present but emotionally absent because they're too busy calculating costs in their head. Eventually, friends start extending fewer invitations because they know you'll either decline or show up and make everyone else feel guilty about spending money. money. But again, the relationship damage goes beyond just social situations. Extreme frugality can destroy romantic relationships in a way you might not even realize until it's too late. Let's take another detour. Gary wanted to take a weekend trip together with his spouse, nothing crazy expensive, just a small cabin about 2 hours away for one night. The total cost would have been maybe $150 for both of them, but he couldn't stop thinking about how that $150 could go into savings instead. He suggested staying home and watching movies, completely missing the point that their partner wanted to create a special memory together. That relationship eventually ended, and while it was never said directly, the extreme frugality played a role. His partner felt like they valued money more than the relationship, and honestly, they weren't wrong. The person had become so obsessed with saving that they forgot money was supposed to serve your life and not control it. The irony is that extreme frugality, which is supposed to give you financial security, actually makes you feel less secure because you're constantly afraid of spending. You hoard money like a dragon hoarding gold, but what's the point of having treasure if you're too scared to ever use it? And here's where it gets really twisted. Extreme frugality can actually make you spend more money in the long run, not less. Let me explain how this psychological trap works. When you deprive yourself for too long, you eventually snap. It's like going on an extreme diet. The more you restrict yourself, the more likely you are to eventually binge. I've seen this pattern countless times. People will be extremely frugal for months, denying themselves everything, and then one day they'll go on a spending spree that wipes out all their savings. But it's not just the binge spending. Extreme frugality makes you make poorer financial decisions because you're focused on the immediate costs that you ignore the long-term value. You buy the cheapest option instead of the best value option. You avoid investing in yourself, education, skills, networking, because it costs money up front even though these investments could multiply your income. So how do you know if you've crossed the line from healthy frugality into destructive extreme frugality? There are warning signs that most people ignore until it's too late. Warning sign number 1, you feel anxiety or guilt every time you spend money, even on necessities. If buying groceries makes you stressed, if you feel guilty about replacing worn out clothes, if you lose sleep over spending $20 on something you actually need, you've gone too far. Warning sign number 2, you're making decisions based on cost alone, not value. If you always choose the cheapest option without considering quality, durability, or long-term costs, you're probably being penny wise and pound foolish. Warning sign number 3, your frugality is affecting your relationships. If friends stop inviting you places, if your family makes comments about your spending habits, or if you've turned down social opportunities because of cost, your frugality has become antisocial. But here's the good news. You can break free from extreme frugality without becoming financially irresponsible. It's about finding balance and changing your relationship with money from one of fear to one of intentionality. The first step is to create what I call guilt-free spending categories. These are areas where you give yourself permission to spend without feeling bad about it. Maybe it's $100 a month for social activities, $50 for hobbies, or $200 for personal care and clothing. The exact amounts don't matter. What matters is that you've pre-decided these expenses are okay. When you spend money in these categories, you don't get to feel guilty about it. You've already decided the spending aligns with your values and your budget. This helps retrain your brain to some spending as positive rather than always negative. The second step is to start thinking about money as a tool, not a goal. Money sitting in your bank account doing nothing isn't actually serving you. Money's value comes from what it can do, the experiences it can create, the problems it can solve, the opportunities it can unlock. But the most important shift you need to make is understanding the difference between being cheap and being frugal. And this distinction could be the key to your financial and emotional freedom. Being cheap means making decisions based solely on cost. Being frugal means making decisions based on value. A cheap person buys the lowest priced item. A frugal person buys the item that provides the best value for their specific needs and situation. A cheap person avoids spending money on anything non-essential. A frugal person invests money in things that improve their life, health, relationships, or earning potential even if those things cost money up front. A cheap person hoards money out of fear. A frugal person saves money intentionally so they can spend it on things that matter to them. The goal isn't to spend more money. It's to spend money more intentionally. It's to use money as a tool to create the life you want rather than letting the fear of spending money prevent you from living. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about something you've actually wanted to do or buy but haven't because of the cost. Maybe it's taking a class, going on a trip, buying better quality food, or just going out to dinner with friends. Now ask yourself, if money wasn't a factor, would this thing improve your life, your relationships, your health, or your happiness? If the answer is yes, and you have room in your budget, you can afford it without going into debt or compromising your essential expenses, then the question isn't whether you can afford it, the question is whether you can afford not to do it. Life is short, money is a renewable resource, but time isn't. The memories you don't make, the relationships you don't invest in, the experiences you don't have because you're too afraid to spend money, those are losses you can never get back. I'm not telling you to be financially irresponsible. I'm telling you that extreme frugality is just as dangerous as overspending, just in different ways. ways. The goal is balance, the goal is intentionality, the goal is using money as a tool to create a life you actually want to live, not just a bank account you're afraid to touch. So be wise and be smart. But now that you understand how extreme frugality can actually destroy your life and relationships, there's a balanced approach that lets you save significant money without the guilt, obsession, or sacrifice. Methods so subtle you won't even notice you're doing them. So check out this video where I reveal 45 painless ways to save money without realizing it.